Yeah, hello students, welcome to Simply Anthro. In this video, we are going to talk about Paper-2 Unit-4, the emergence and the growth and development of anthropology. We know anthropology is the study of human science in every sense. But how did this anthropology emerge as a subject, emerged as a discipline, who are contributed for them? Remember, the fourth unit is like emergence and the growth of anthropology in India, contributions of the 18th, 19th and the 20th century, the scholars, administrators, contributions of Indian anthropologists to the tribal and caste studies. Remember, anthropology. Anthropology developed in India with the advent of Europeans, especially British. Why? Because the British wanted to explore India. They wanted to excavate the tribal minerals and all. For that reason, they went for archaeology. They introduced missionary to study tribals and caste for ruling India for very longer time. In that process, Britishers were the first who introduced anthropology in India with the help of Indians. As Indians assisting the British anthropologists, slowly Indians also developed interest in anthropology. Slowly they became Indian anthropologists. After that, Americans during World War II, Americans played a very important role. The American anthropologists played a very important role in the domain of anthropologists to study the personalities of various nationals. For example, personality study of Japan people is very, very important in World War II. In this entire, that is, who are the anthropologists contributed in 18th century, then 19th century and 20th century, even after independence in India, how anthropology developed as a subject, what are the various methods, methodologies, techniques introduced in India, field works, ethnograph, everything would be discussed in this particular chapter. But the development of anthropology would be discussed under three phases. One is like the formative phase, the next one constructive phase, and next one analytic phase. These are the three phases of the development of anthropology we will discuss, and what are the contributions made by Indian anthropologists. For example, M.N. Srinivas, L.P. Vidyarthi and D.N. Majumdar. What are their contributions? S.C. Dubey. What are their contributions for the Indian anthropology for the study of tribals and caste? This is what about fourth unit. The fourth unit contributes approximately 20 to 30 marks in our mains anthropology paper. Let us talk about unit 5 in paper 2. In the unit 5 paper 2 we have total 3 chapters, 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3. Then look at here is the unit 5 paper 2 is clearly talks about Indian village. I can talk about Indian village is a social system. See, 78% of India is villages. The remaining is urban centers. The maximum tribals, the caste system, ethnic variability, socio-cultural factors, everything would be present in the Indian villages. Here we will talk about significance of Indian village studies. Significance of Indian village study means why we need to study the Indian village. Why? Because Gandhiji and other people said the village development contributes to the national development. We'll talk about Indian village as a social system, traditional and changing patterns of settlements in villages. What do you mean by nuclear settlement? What do you mean by triangular settlement? What do you mean by linear settlement? All these settlement patterns of Indian villages would be discussed. For example, you see Tamil Nadu, there is a temple. Around the temples we can find the villages, we can have the houses. This is called as circular settlement pattern, rectangular, linear, parallel. Like we will discuss many settlement patterns and their changes in India and why they were changing. Earlier we have like a circular kind of settlement pattern. Right now we have the linear patterns of settlements in villages because we are getting the tap water facilities everywhere. Earlier we see there is a well. Around the well there would be a settlement pattern. But modern days there is a tap connectivity for every house. Settlement patterns are changing. That we will discuss. We also discuss Intercaste relations in villages. We know caste system in village and urban centers. In urban centers, the impact of caste is very less. The intercaste relations are little more flexible, but in village, intercaste relations are very rigid, and how they were changing in accordance with time and space, we have to discuss. Agrarian relations in the Indian villages, impact of globalization on the Indian villages. Right now we are living in a globalized world. How the globalization, how the world impacting Indian village system is a very, very interesting and important. What village you are seeing, or else look at your village. Is that the same? Is that the same since your childhood? No. The villages are continuously changing because of urbanization, industrialization, modernization, and many other reasons we will discuss. In 5.2, linguistic and religious minorities in India. According to Indian Constitution, there are two types of minorities, religious minorities and linguistic minorities. And what are their social, political, and economic status in India? What are the religious minorities? What are the linguistic, that is language-based minorities? Who are minorities? For example, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Jain, Sikh, all they were called as minorities. Religious. Based on language, we'll talk about linguistic. When I say the religious minorities, they considered nation-wise. When I say linguistic minorities, we consider them based on the state-wise. Because the Telugu speaking people were more in Andhra and Telangana, but they were less in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telugu speaking people were minority language speaking people. So linguistic minority would be studied based on state, but religious minority would be studied across the nation. Next, indigenous and exogenous process and how they affected Indian villages. What is indigenous? What is exogenous? Means Indian village system is affected by internal changes and external changes. Internal is nothing but indigenous. External is nothing but exogenous. You see Sanskritization, westernization, modernization, interplay of little and great tradition given by L.P. Vidyarthi. When it's a little tradition, that is a tribal. When it's a great tradition, that is upper or urban. How the little tradition influencing great tradition, how the great traditions influencing little tradition, the interplay is much interesting, we will discuss. And we talk about Panchayati Raj and how this Panchayati Raj affected Indian villages, how media and what are the social changes of Indian villages. So all this is a part of, some part of polity, some part of society, some part of your tribal related issues, which is much interesting. It is like more or less social and tribal issues. 5.1 to 5.3 Indian village. Next, Paper-2 Unit 6, very, very important. Unit 6, Unit 7, Unit 8 mostly, even Unit 9 to an extent, we can call them as tribal anthropology. Tribal anthropology. Clear, right? Even Unit 5 is also connection with the tribal anthropology, but not exactly, that is village studies. Look at here is chapter 6, again have three things, 6.1, 2 and 3. 6.1, tribal situations in India. Here we will talk about what is biogenetic variability of tribals. For example, we have various tribes in India. Here we will talk about race. We will talk about race. There are Mongoloid, Dravidians. Do you remember that? Mongoloid, Dravidian race. Like what are the, like Sino-Tibetan race? There are various races in India. Why the races? Race is because of morphological features. Morphological features is because of genes. When I say genes, can I call them as biogenetic variability? When there is a changes in genes, there is a changes in morphological features that result into different race in India. Take Mongoloid, they have epicanthic fold. You see Dravidians, they have plenty of bodily hair. Likewise, every race has different physical characteristics that we will study in this chapter. Much interesting it is. We'll talk about linguistic and socio-economic characteristics of tribal population and the distribution of tribes across the India. We'll just take an India map. Where are the tribals distributed? The maximum tribes in India were present in central India, and then northeast, and then the southern part of India have the tribal population. We'll take the list of tribes and their analysis. 6.2 Tribal problems are the problems of tribal communities. What are the tribal problems? We know one is a land alienation, means the tribal land is captured by outsiders. Land alienation, poverty, indebtedness because of money lenders, low literacy rate, poor educational facilities, unemployment, underdevelopment, health and nutrition. Very, very interesting. It is more or less your GS topics, much interesting they were. We'll discuss what are the problems, what are the reasons for problems, what are the recommendations given by various committees, what are the government initiatives and constitutional safeguards for avoiding these problems. 6.3 Developmental projects in the tribal areas and how they were led to tribal displacement and the problem of rehabilitation and resettlement. What are the tribal policies launched by the government, forest policies launched by the government to protect tribals and their interests, impact of urbanization and industrialization of tribal population. For example, I would say that tribal lands are rich sources of minerals. It is a fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know. Wherever you see in the world or in India, the tribal lands are the rich source of minerals. Wherever minerals were present, industries were established nearby the minerals. Multi-developmental projects would be constructed. Because of all these reasons, the tribals need to be displaced from that area. That is very challenging task. Why? Tribals are having much affinity towards their land, towards their geography. Displacing them, rehabilitating them, resettlement of them is a difficult task. There are many flaws in that. Not only that, today the industrialization and as well as urbanization also affecting tribals in India. What are all this would be discussed. Much interesting. It is not at all difficult, very easy. We can easily secure the marks. This chapter would be getting around 30 marks in your mains. 6 unit would be getting around 30 marks in your mains minimum. Very, very interesting chapter it is. Good luck.